Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, jetters, betters and property letters, welcome along to the Joe Spiver YouTube channel, where we discuss books and little else. And welcome back to Random Reviews, folks, where we take a work of long-standing canonical worth, slit it up the front with a Swiss knife and let its entrails fall out onto the table and fish around to see what's really going on in there. But just as a little prolegomena, if you will, I put out a poll on my YouTube community page a little while ago, and we have come to the democratic conclusion that we will be reading the life and works of 6th Lord Baron Byron of Newstead in February. My much touted and much teased read-along will finally be coming to fruition. And yes, so if you are wanting a common reference work, then this is going to be the biographical data that we're going to be looking at. I'm going to do a big long reread of just this without any poetry for now, because I'm going to trust that Fiona McCarthy is going to introduce some of the poetical works of Byron. So yes, if you're wanting the exact same copy as the one that I'm going to be thumbing through, or at least, the same copy that I'll be thumbing through, then this is the one. Byron, Life and Legend. This is an A3 copy by the looks of things. It's massive. That I have read before, of course. I've read all the poetry before and all of the biographies, not all of the biographies, but I've read a few biographies before. So this is going to be jolly good fun to get through. So yes, if you're wanting the same work, then it's going to be that one throughout February. So do part with what approximates at about, I think it's $200 and £200 for this. Brand new. Try and scrounge one second hand from a library if you can, but you don't need one. You don't necessarily need one. It may be able to pincer one online. But yeah, if you're wanting something to come along with me, Byron, Life and Legend by Fiona McCarthy we're going to be starting reading that at the beginning of February. So yes, but let us get on to random reviews, folks. We are today dealing with the 1925 The Great Gatsby from F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now, this is really much better than I remember it being, folks. This is a reread for maybe the third or fourth time, given it's so slim and has been on my shelf for 4 or 5 years. And yeah, it's absolutely splendid, folks. This is the story of Nick Carraway, who is a stuttering, sheltered, trepidatious bond seller who's in the bond industry, and he moves to a... what would you say? It's like a sort of peninsula of New York called West Egg that is populated by new money, the nouveau riche. He takes what amounts to essentially a small cabin next to the mansion of a meteoric millionaire who he knows to be called Gatsby, and yes. Pretty soon he starts to see people coming to and fro, and sees that it's a point of interest for much of the community. But his first outing, the first event, the first duty of the novel, of course, while he's going back and to and from his offices in the New York City, is to go across the bay to East Egg, which is the hot pot of old money, or the melting pot of old money, if such a melting pot of old money does truly exist in America, given that you guys have only been around for a couple of hundred years, or at least the westernized Anglospheric version of America has only been around a couple of hundred years. So yes, if old money could be said to exist, then it does exist indeed in East Egg, in the hands primarily of Nick Carraway's cousin's husband. So his second cousin, I believe, is Daisy Buchanan, and she has married Tom Buchanan, who is a manful, boisterous backslapper, a proper truculent gutter snipe who exerts himself on everybody, and the typical ex-college jock. The lad and who derives shows a deplorable curiosity for sort of ethnological works about intrinsic differences between the values of blacks and whites, yada yada, all that horrid stuff. That is brought up in the films and in commentary of the book very, very often. And yes, they himself and Nick then go into what can only be referred as extracurricular activity. They're going to New York and find Tom's sort of fleshy nubile, his floozy, his bit on the side, who is called Myrtle, who is married to a mechanic, and they engage in the sort of hedonistic, plentiful, splendorous abandon that is so common and that is deemed to be this book's most, at least most acclaimed theme and virtue is its celebration of, as I say, sort of felicitous abandon and of no more. We're not going to delay self-gratification anymore. We just want all the things that we need right now, and I want to ingest them within the next 15 seconds. It is a complete self-satisfied stupors and drunken stupors. And yes, Nick Carraway is described as being both within and without. It's narrated by Nick, funnily enough. But yeah, he's described as feeling both within and without, and as being a little bit of a priggish voyeur into this new world of abandon, essentially, of people, of partying and of infinite jest and of all that type of thing. Now, Nick finds, to his delight, that he gets an invitation to one of Gatsby's do's pretty soon after this. And, he goes around. He seems to be the only one with an invitation. There are salacious rumours about Gatsby's origins, about him being a supposed cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm, or about him having killed a man once, or about him being a German spy, all sorts of unverifiable claims as to his antecedents, that type of thing. And, he finds Gatsby and, is addressed personally to him, who, again, Gatsby is himself a little rather apart from all of the felicitations and all of the partying that goes on in his house. And, he is Nick Carraway is absolutely bamboozled by Gatsby. We soon find that Gatsby is probably just going to be using Nick as an instrument for his reacquaintance with Daisy Buchanan, his cousin, who we find out was involved with Daisy Buchanan when he was a much younger and poorer soldier. And that's the gravamen and the crux of the matter, really. And it's very, very, very enjoyable, folks. There are positives and few negatives that I can find with this, really. There are a few things that I wanted to get at. One thing that I sort of missed in my my reads of it previously was Nick's, at least referential romanticism with Jordan Baker, who is the more astute and more assured and slightly more sort of reserved and a little bit more, wily and wry and, enticing friend. She's got darker hair, usually depicted as having darker hair, being slightly taller and slightly thinner, and, just a little bit more, a little bit more exciting. One thing, again, that I didn't really notice before in my readings of it was the dignification of Daisy Buchanan. She can be seen as a little bit of a sort of, a hair-twirling person who spends most of the time in La La Land. But of course, she is similarly as wry as Jordan Baker is in their muted criticism of Tom Buchanan when he's talking about that ethnology and about all sorts of other stuff. And at the inevitable meeting of Tom Buchanan and Jay Gatsby, there is that inevitable conflict, that inevitable animus that will result from the new money, where Gatsby is speculated as being a little bit maybe of a bootlegger, or Gatsby says that he's from a rich family from the from the Midwest, and was given war medals by even Montenegro. And so there's that real mix of Tom Buchanan, who has never earned a cent in his life, but has had it lavished upon him, and Jay Gatsby, who we predict to have risen through the ranks. He's certainly got more money than avarice could ever request of him. So yes, there's that inevitable conflict, I suppose. So we've got the dignification of Daisy Buchanan. She's not nearly as wistful and whimsical and harmless as I had supposed in the past. I always wondered why Gatsby and Tom were so ensorcelled by her, but in fact I feel as if I know now. And yes, this is a great evocation of the post-war, American financial boom, and with it's sort of really jittery and really episodic, and everything's really ephemeral, and it's very restless, a little bit like this Joe Spiver YouTube channel, and it's sort of you can tell that he's trying to sort of evoke the bit, the ticker tape of 24-hour finance and of new things just spurting every day. There's never a sentence like, I sat down for 35 minutes in deep contemplation. There's always calls on people's attention and things for people to fill their diary with. All sorts of things like that to do. And I think Tom Buchanan is, first of all, Fitzgerald was a little bit of a drunkard, so I don't know how much credit I should give him, but he refers to Tom Buchanan as restless really rather a lot, and uses those depriving adverbs rather a lot as well. So restlessly, humorlessly, tunelessly, harmlessly. So he presents an adjective and then adds lessly to the end so very many times. That seems to be a favourite of Fitzgerald, and I noticed. So there are a few passages that I want to introduce you to, but I found it much more. It's concise and succinct, but it doesn't deprive us of contemplation and of introspection and of deliberating the issues, and you don't feel as though you're being rushed along something, unless when Fitzgerald wants you to in some of the set pieces in bars and in hotel rooms. In penthouses, you don't feel as if you're being rushed along. He does give you the opportunity to think about it, I suppose. So yes, let's get into some of the passages. This is the introduction of Gatsby. We haven't met Gatsby yet. We just hear about him as Nick Carraway is deciding to write. Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have unaffected scorn. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him, some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, as if he were related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby impressionability which is dignified under the name of the creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely I shall ever find again. You notice there what he said, if personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, and we come to the inevitable conclusion really that Gatsby's friendliness and warmth is of a gestural nature and a performative nature, pretty much for his own ends, old sport. But yes, you've got the sort of frictionless movement from one thing to another. Nick Carraway seems to be able to get this presumably quite expensive house for apparently he wants to be a writer at where did he go to university? I think he goes to Yale maybe. He wants to be a writer there, but then he goes to be a bond trader, and everything happens really quickly. Here we are. I graduated from New Haven in 1915, just a quarter of a century after my father, and a little later I participated in the delayed Teutonic migration known as the Great War. I enjoyed the counter-raid so thoroughly that I came back restless. Instead of being the warm centre of the world, the Midwest now seemed like the ragged edge of the universe. So I decided to go east and learn the bond business. Everybody I knew was in the bond business, so I supposed it could support one more single man. Then later, the practical thing was to find rooms in the city, but it was a warm season, and I'd just left a country of wide lawns and friendly trees. So when a young man at the office suggested that we take a house together in a commuting town, it sounded like a great idea. He found the house, a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow at $80 a month, but at the last minute the firm ordered him to Washington, and I went out to the country alone. You see, all of these things that would take Generation Z 14 years to decide is all done within half a page. Everything just comes and goes really quickly. Nobody ever sits down in this novel. Nobody ever contemplates anything. You're always on your heels, essentially. So this is talking about Nick having both a devil and an angel bartering on his shoulder when he's with Tom and Myrtle in the penthouse suite when they're getting drunk. This is only the second time in his life that he's been drunk. The bottle of whiskey, a second one, was now in constant demand by all present except Catherine, who felt just as good on nothing at all. Tom rang for the janitor and sent him some celebrated sandwiches, which were a complete supper in themselves. I wanted to get out and walk eastward toward the park, through the soft twilight, but each time I tried to go I became entangled in some wild, strident argument which pulled me back, as if with ropes, into my chair. Yet high over the city our line of yellow windows must have contributed their share of human secrecy to the casual watcher in the darkening streets, and I saw him too, looking up and wondering. I was within and without, simultaneously enchanted and repelled by the inexhaustible variety of life. and I've got a few more things that I could highlight, but yeah, this comes with an introduction from and notes by Tony Tanner, who comes from presumably a long line of Tanners. I went to school with a Tanner, I do believe. But yes, this is a pretty good introduction. The first half is excellent. If ever you are reading an introduction to a literary work and they use the surname Freud, Marx, Foucault, Derrida, or Jung, then you should run a mile and throw it through the roof, because they are dealing with mere speculation, folks, and nothing that could be honoured or reified with the term theory. But anyway, it doesn't do that at the start. It does eventually puts Nick Carraway on the chaise lounge, lays him out supine, strokes his head and wants to talk about his teddy bears and his water bottle as a young child, all that nonsense. But at the start, it's really, really rather analytical. A deep generating question behind the whole book is just this. As a result of the domestication of the great wild continent discovered by Columbus, what has been hatched from it? What will you find if you take your spoon to the great eggs, or is it eggs, of America? A disgusting, aborted, stunted and stillborn thing, fit only to be thrown away, or a treasure, something special and marvellous and rare? Are the true products of America as dissimilar as the two eggs might suggest, with the East Egg Buchanans representing and embodying the sort of devouring, self-pleasuring and hypocritical materialism that the stupendous and ruthless success of 19th century capitalism fostered and enabled? That sentence is a bit long. And the West Egg alliance of Nick and Gatsby holding out for the possibility, the necessity of that something else, something more, which materialism can never satisfy, a nostalgic yearning for some sort of ideal that refuses to concede any absolute dominion to the merely accidental triumphs of the matter and matters of the day. Again, it's a bit much, it's a bit... I don't know. I want to use the word striated, but I don't think that's quite. I don't think that's quite apposite. But anyway, yes. So that is F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. I think it's 25, and there's obviously a film. I think it's Baz Luhrmann with Leonardo DiCaprio and I think Tobey Maguire from I think it said Star Wars, then Spider-Man. Yeah, it's in gorgeous colour. Nick's intention to be a writer is a little bit overdone. What else is in there? It's very clear that those who wanted to impart some of the literary worth of it onto the screen, you sometimes have Tobey Maguire's scribblings put onto the screen. Those are almost always exclusive, or invariably the last remarks of a paragraph. So someone's clearly just gone through. Oh, look, there's the end of a paragraph. Oh, that's quite profound. Let's stick it on the screen for the masses. So it's not a bad film, not bad by any stretch. But yeah, it invents an awful lot of Nick Carraway's speech, when in fact you've got or his musings, some of his B-roll and some of his some of his musings. It invents it rather than just going to the primary source. So yes, I'm not going to jabber on anymore. That has been my random review of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. It was an awful lot better than I remember it being. I'm told by my demographers that quite a majority of my audience are American, so if you guys think I've rode roughshod over something, or I've missed something, or there's some sort of, geographical exclusivity, which means that I am, as I say, just tilting at windmills, and in fact not getting at something truly American, then please let me know what indeed you made of things in the comments. So yes, thank you ever so much for watching BookTube, and goodbye.